Hey everybody, welcome back to On Stage, Off Stage. I'm your host, George Sapio, and this is episode 203, July of 2026. Our guest this month is Rachel Rubin Ladutke. Rachel is a playwright director, she's a teacher, she's a mom, she's an ally. Her Zoom podcast, States of Play, which serves as a place for playwrights to hear their work out loud, sometimes for the first time, is now in its fifth year and still going strong. She's a lifelong theater professional and strong advocate for local community theaters and especially theater for younger audiences. You and I have known of each other on the playwriting circuit for a number of years, and your name keeps coming up here and there, especially with States of Play, which we will get talking to. But I think what finally behooved me to approach you to be on the podcast is that note you sent out a little while ago that you've been invited to join the board of the Halifax Theater for Young People. What's the Theater for Young People? And let's talk about the work and how you're involved with that.
So actually, I'm just getting started with it, and we're having our first meeting of 2026 this weekend. But from what I can find out about it, they commission original work and they hire local playwrights that are, in that community. At the moment, we're working on something with African Nova Scotian writers,
Okay.
and they develop the script and they tour it around to the schools, and they also do some professional performances, but it's the only professional theater company based around youth theater that's in the Maritimes.
Which
And I believe it was founded in 2009.
okay.
So my husband is in a graduate program, and one of his classmates mentioned that she was involved with Halifax Theater for Young People and they were looking for board members, and he sent that to me right away because I'm really trying to find ways to get involved with the community here.
Right. Is there a lot of theater in Halifax?
So there's some professional, there's some community, and there's some educational theater. Yeah, there's a good mix. My teenager is going to be taking classes at the professional theater downtown in Halifax called Neptune Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And they do shows year round. And there's also a company called Shakespeare by the Sea. And we went to both of their productions last summer and they were pretty cool.
Nice. So, what kind
Yeah.
of work does the Halifax Theater for Young People? What plays have they put on? What are you familiar with here?
So I don't have the titles of them because, as I told you before, we only moved here last summer.
Right.
So I haven't seen their work yet, but I know that what they're working on, which is a more advanced state of development and is going to be touring soon because they workshops last year, is a musical based on transgender issues.
Okay, that's a really important topic.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see it, and I'm hoping that I can get a look at the script soon at least. But from my understanding, they're going to start touring that sometime in 2026.
What's the political climate up there as far as transgender kids goes? Because I know back in the States, it's quite a fiery topic.
Well, my own child identifies as gender queer, but they had been describing themselves as transgender at one point, and I'm
Mhm.
still learning all the definitions.
Sure, yeah,
They're in grade 11, as they call it. They don't say junior, senior here. We decided that would be a thing that we would try to get started
yeah.
because they don't say freshman, sophomore, junior, senior for high school. But so they're in grade 11 and they hadn't been in public school for a number of years. So not only were they adjusting to public school, but public school in a different country. And I know that they mention different kids that go by they, them, or
Hmm.
uh, Z is another one of the pronouns.
Yes, I'm
So
familiar with that. It's not
yes,
widely used, but every once in a while it crops up. Yeah,
and they'll correct me if I say something about someone and I'm not using the correct pronoun, like very respectfully, like, oh no.
sure. It,
So
it,
it
it
seems to be just kind of taken in stride that, and I don't know that that's something specific to the Maritimes or to Canada, and I'm not
Right.
saying that it's like that everywhere, but Halifax regional metropolitan area seems to be pretty friendly to it. The
Okay.
Maritimes seem to be pretty cool. I have heard that, some of the other provinces were more problematic, and they're starting to look at colleges now. So
Right. Yeah.
also trying to be aware of that.
Yeah. Because it's such a embattled topic back in the United States that
Unfortunately.
yeah, it's really revealing the dark side of humanity when a group that has absolutely no threat to anyone is marginalized and victimized, such as. And I mean, I come from Ithaca, New York, where it's a home and a haven for LGBTQ and transgender and genderqueer and gender fluid. And yeah, it
Mhm.
is a little crazy trying to keep up with who describes themselves as which. But
They
generally,
used to
with
be saying he, they, and then now they're like, oh, you can call me anything. And they were in
yeah,
Girl Scouts. I was the Girl Scout leader and for 10 years. And, the other girls in the troop would be just like, calling Charlie, whatever they wanted to be called that month. And they've gone through a lot of names.
it gets a little confusing, but I think a large part of that is the kids are still finding out who they are.
To sum it up, the fact that they're going to have a musical about transgender youth issues and be touring it around to the schools indicates that it's pretty cool here.
Yeah. Well,
There's
that's good to know. Yeah.
there's definitely comments I see on Facebook by what they call Maple MAGA, but I just try to let that roll off be.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think that kind of stuff is going away anytime soon. Okay, let's talk
No.
about something a little positive, a little bit more positive here. Theater for young people. Why is theater for young people important?
Well, I was a theater teacher for 2.5 years after teaching early childhood for almost a decade. And I used to go over that with my students and their parents all the time. And we would talk about how it builds confidence and cooperation and verbal skills and writing skills and being able to think on your feet. And then there's, of course, the social emotional benefits.
True. Yeah. Having tried to explain theater to so many educators over the years, especially when I'm going for a job, trying to get, stage directing incorporated into the curriculum. And nobody seems to realize how important it is to critical growth, to being able to think your way through problems, because theater is almost all problems.
Oh my goodness, it absolutely is.
Yeah, it reminds me of that scene from Shakespeare in Love where one character says to the other, with everything that's going wrong, how do you know it's going to turn out okay? And the other person says, I don't know. It's a mystery, but it does.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There's
it's
so many unseen benefits and things, intangible benefits, really. So, and try to explain that to to somebody that's just not getting it. So,
I think if you can list them, then it becomes semi-tangible.
yeah, I used to have a PowerPoint. I had to dig it up again.
Yeah. No, I think theater is one of the most important things that young people can do these days because it teaches them, at least it gives them a chance to empathize with people or find out about people who are strange to them, unfamiliar to them.
Yeah, and I used to show even in the last school I was working at, it was pre-K up to 8. And in 6th grade, they would pick an arts discipline. And so I had a very small number of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that were theater focused. But
Mhm.
even with the younger kids, would sometimes towards the end of the year bring in the Tony Award stuff. And so I would take Tony performances that had kids in them or younger people and show them that, for example, how athletic dance can be. I would show them Matilda and Newsies.
Right.
And everybody in the class had something that they were, by the end of it, that they were like, even if it was for
Hmm.
30 seconds. So
Well,
that was my goal, to get the shock and awe going. Like, wow, he just
sure.
did 3 backflips without touching the stage.
It's nice to see the light go on, isn't it?
It's so exciting.
Yeah,
Then you just
that's
have to keep it lit. My teenagers in the improv group, and apparently there's something here called Canadian Improv Games, and there's it's either in its 25th or its 30th year.
okay.
And so they do something called X rounds, where they get to come together, all the different groups, and get they each do one 5-minute improv. There are different categories. They get to
Mhm.
pick their category, and they get judge feedback. So by the time they go to the competition, which is in the beginning of March, they've had 2 chances to get input from the judges before they do the competition. And apparently his high school got to regionals last year, which
Nice.
is kind of, yeah, we're hoping for nationals because we get to go to Ontario, and I told them if they go, I'm chaperoning. Like, that is not negotiable because I love traveling. But they have 2 years to do it, so they have two chances.
That, that's cool, especially with improv, because improv, I've always thought of improv as one of the most daunting, scariest parts of theater, being able to think on
Oh
your
my
feet
gosh,
like that.
absolutely. One of the other kids in their group, when they did the skit the other week, did like a backward somersault, and Charlie explained to me that this kid is like triple jointed. I was like, oh my God. One of the other groups got up, and their chosen format was musical. So they had to improv, and they asked for a setting, so they had to improvise a musical in a coffee shop.
Okay,
It
there
was
you go.
it's really amazing. It's really amazing. I was like, why didn't you invite me to the first X rounds? I can't wait till the competition. I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna have fun. I blocked off the whole week because I have to drive them anyway. I may
Why
as well
not?
stay in.
Exactly. Yes. No reason why you
Yeah.
should miss out on any of that.
Oh no.
No. So this is not the only board you serve on. You're also on the prestigious International Center for Women's Playwrights.
Yeah, I was
And
on their board years ago, and I rejoined a couple of years back because there are term limits, and
right.
just roped me into being treasurer this year because we're all shifting our positions. I was always member at large, but it's good. It's fine. My dad was a math teacher. I'll get through it.
So what kind of work do you do as treasurer?
Still finding that out, but basically it's going to be managing expenses and sending out checks for, or payment, actually, who does checks anymore,
Right. Of
for
course. Yeah.
our website, and keeping track of memberships and stuff like that. It sounds like spreadsheet stuff, so I haven't done it yet, but I can do it. I've always tried to be like very adaptable and not freak out. So
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's a big job,
I
especially with an
break things
organization
off.
of that size. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I don't know how
but
many
we're
members they've got, but it's got to be a lot.
I'm not sure either, but we're in a restructuring, and we want to build our profile, and there hasn't been a lot of activity, but we do have a wonderful opportunities newsletter that gets sent out to the members. I think it's every week now. We actually have somebody that we pay to compile opportunities, and I'm
Mhm.
always like, wow, I need to start sending stuff out again.
Yeah. You can't stop sending stuff out for sure. Drops in the bucket and bricks in the Grand Canyon for some of us, but still, once in a while, you get a hit.
Once in a while, I submitted something for Halifax Fringe, and I'm told that it's a lottery. So, if that's true, then I have a shot. If not,
Yeah.
they don't know me for that. So, maybe next year, but we'll see. I
Right.
find out next month, I think.
Good
So
luck.
it does have a partially Canadian setting, but I wrote it years ago, and it's very funny if I do say so myself.
Well, I'm sure other people will say so as well. How many
So
slots are they expecting for the fringe?
I was here when they had it up last year, but I had just moved here and I was still unpacking. There are still boxes in my basement, but we're pretty livable now. But I want to say they had over 30 different things, and they
Okay.
want something that's a maximum of maybe 40 minutes because they try to get stuff in and out every hour and you get multiple performances, and some of the things were dance based and some of them were poetry performance. So they do have like a nice
Nice.
range
Yeah.
of stuff.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, and I also have a friend that lives in Toronto, and I'm gonna go visit her in the spring, but maybe I'll be able to go back for Toronto Fringe. I don't even know when that is, but I have to find out.
Yeah. I know Toronto Fringe is pretty big.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be happy to come to Halifax this year. We'll see.
Halifax should be fun. Yeah.
It would
Small,
be. Halifax
small.
is off. We love Nova Scotia. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, and the winter hasn't been that bad yet. And yeah, we
Fingers
love it.
crossed. Yeah. It's one of those places I've always wanted to go.
Well, we have two sleep sofas in the basement. I'm sitting on one of them right now, so you're welcome anytime.
So this is over. I'm leaving. I'm getting my bag packed and we're going.
All right.
We ran a fringe back in Ithaca a number of years ago. I'm only mentioning this because you said lottery. And
Yeah.
when we were creating this, I received advice from several of the other fringe artistic directors, Orlando and a couple of others. And they pretty much cornered me and said, you have to do lottery. You cannot pick by committee. You have to do lottery. And the way they explained it to me, it made the most sense and it seemed the most fair.
Yeah.
I had one person stare me in the face and say, what makes you the arbiter of what's good and what's not? And trying to sell that point to the people who were funding us with that at that time, I was taking a little bit of power out of their hands because now they would have no say in what kind of acts they brought in.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But did you say like there are, we want to have maybe 6 to 8 things that are dance focused and then like categorize it that way, or did you just
We had a
spin a
very
big wheel?
small fringe of about 6 acts.
Oh, okay, so
Okay, yeah, because we were just getting started and funding was hard to get. So we figured we'd
oh,
start off
exciting.
small and see what happened. We ran for 4 years, but we got like 6 or 7 acts one year, but at the most.
Okay,
But we
all
tried to
right.
get a mix. So,
So I did, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
no, I was just waiting on you.
Yeah. So that actually brings us nicely into a little bit of what I did with States of Play, because the first year, the only criterion
Mhm.
were that the playwrights, only the first year were going to be female or female identifying, female
Right,
plus. And we wanted to present one play set in each of the 50 states.
that's a big undertaking.
Yeah, so when we did, I'll go back a little bit before in a bit to explain like where it came from, and then you can use what you want of it. But uh, if we got, let's say, 6 plays set in California, then I would put them on one of those randomizer wheel spinny things on the internet and you know, pick a name, because I did not and do not to this day adjudicate States of Play, and we just started our 5th year. I say, hey, when we have slots, I'm like, hey, I have openings for next month, and let me know what week works for you, or what night of the week works for you, or what doesn't work for you, and then it's really built around what the playwright's needs are,
Are you still doing
and has
52 plays a year? I mean, is it one a week?
Uh, no, no, we aren't. But this year we're doing pretty dang close to every week.
Wow.
We're scheduled through the end of July right now. And I think maybe there are some months where we'll do 3. Like I'm taking a trip in April and a trip in June. So, but almost every week this year. But this year's our 5th year and we're doing something special. So basically the way States of Play came about is that when the pandemic hit, I had been in, I don't even want to call it a writing slump. I just hadn't been writing or doing much theater for quite a while. And,
Right.
I'd had my kids in 2002 and 2008, and I got very involved in that. And then I did a career change in 2013, 2014. So I'd been in grad school for a few years before that. So I wasn't giving myself the headspace to write,
Yeah.
which I regret, but I always tell my kids we don't have a time machine. And then my
Yeah.
23-year-old in particular throw that back at me when I'm upset about something that happened years ago. He's like, well, you can't change that now. I'm like, fair.
Yeah.
So I had directed a musical right before the pandemic hit at one of the community theaters in New Jersey. And uh, New Jersey has, I think, I would venture to say one of the strongest community theater scenes of any state in the country. It's just
Yeah.
wonderful
It is. Yes.
and very vibrant. And, literally when I got to have friends involved in theater there, when I started getting involved in the community, there would be times when I knew I wouldn't be able to see everybody's shows,
Yeah.
even if I could see them for free, because I just didn't have the time. But anyway, I had directed a musical in November of 2019 that my younger kid, who was turning 11 at that time, we created like a few little things for Charlie to do in the musical. And so, although I had a rough time with that because I hadn't directed in quite a while, I got some really good friends out of it. And so when the pandemic hit, after a month or so, some of these people were starting an online play reading group just to read, any plays that anybody was interested in doing, like not new
Sure.
stuff. So I participated in a few of those. I watched a few, and then I was like, hey, would you like to read one of mine? And they were like, yeah, sure. So I brought in something I had written years before that had staged readings and everything. Like I knew it was good to go, called
Hmm.
The Understanding. And it was the first time I'd heard anything of mine read in a long time, and it just really kickstarted me. So I promised myself that I was going to spend the summer writing again. And I was teaching at the time. So I was like, okay, cool, I can, do that.
Right.
And I decided to take a play of mine called The Wickham Way, which I had written years before and was very close to my heart, but I never got it right. I never cracked it.
Some take longer than others.
Yeah, and I said I'm going to take one more shot at it. So I brought in the first act, which was more viable than the second act by far, and asked them to read that and give me input. And these were, again, friends of mine,
Yeah.
although some of them I hadn't met face to face, but they were still friends. And they were all involved in the New Jersey theater community. And they gave me input, and I just like ran with it. And I wrote the second act, what I considered a viable version of the second act. I mean, there was a skeleton in 5 days.
That's pretty
So,
good.
so 8 days after we read the first act, we read the whole thing. And then I did some revisions on it. And, it was just like, okay, I got this now,
Yeah.
and I got so excited about my writing again, and I hadn't felt that way, and I hadn't let myself feel that way in a long time.
Right. And now you're
So we
doing this
kicked,
for others too. You've got people coming up on
yeah.
how many? Okay, so how many shows do you do a year?
So in the last few years, we were doing about 2 to 3 a month,
Okay.
more like two a month until I finished my teaching, and then over the summer we would do more. But so this year we're doing something almost every week because the very first year we did a play every week.
Right. That's a lot.
It was crazy. It was the
Yeah.
only way to get them all in, and my husband like practically died.
I hope
Yeah, so
not.
no, so I'd actually promised him when I started teaching theater because it was new to me and I had been teaching pre-K for a while and could do that, not in my sleep, but I was down with it. So when I basically switched careers because I was teaching an entirely different kind of thing, I said, all right, I'm going to keep, states of play to twice a month
Yeah.
during the school year. And I did that. But um, this year I went back to all of the playwrights that were featured the first year. I call them legacy playwrights,
Yeah.
reached out to them and said, do you have a piece that you want me to do this year? The first year we covered all the different states and and in Washington, D.C. And now, so some of them hadn't had a reading since. A lot of them have been involved at some point or watched something or whatever. I said, it's year 5. I said, it doesn't matter where it's set. It doesn't matter how long it is, because sometimes we'll put together an evening of shorter pieces. Whatever goes.
Yeah.
And it was the first year it was open to anybody, any gender,
No,
anything. So
good. Good. So how do you put these together? The playwrights come in with their own casts, or do you cast them? What's the process?
So we have a member group on Facebook, and it's going to sound huge, but I mean, a lot of them like are just in the group, but
Sure. Yeah.
or
Well,
they
it's the same with most
but
groups. Yeah.
we have over 1,100 members. So I will, if I get a script from a playwright, I'll schedule it with them, and I do not vet it at all. I'm like, okay, you have this play, and we can set a date for it. And then, do you need volunteer readers, or do you have your own people, or a mix? So they can bring in their own readers if they want to. A
Hmm.
lot of times they'll say, can you get me somebody, or I need some people, not all. So, for example, the first reading we're doing in February is a musical, and when we do those, they just read the lyrics,
Okay. Yeah.
but
Sure. Yeah.
it's by a composer collaborator friend of mine, and she had some of the actors and still needed about 5 or 6 people, counting. We have somebody read the stage directions, so I do have the playwright highlight the stage directions that they want read
Right.
out loud. And so everybody's working off that script so they know when to stop talking. Usually it works really well. So it can be however they want it to be, and if they want to run the talkback themselves. We have some really great rousing talkbacks sometimes.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
one that you saw the other night was actually like fairly calm, but and it never gets argumentative, but we will have sometimes like 40 or 50-minute talkbacks. It depends on the script. So it's pretty
Right.
cool.
Well, that was a good
Uh,
script the other night. For those of you listening now, it was the Hot Tub Play by Lisa Delagerino Ferrand. Um,
Hilarious.
yeah. Oh my goodness, I couldn't stop laughing at this one, and the actors were absolutely killer. They were so spot on and absolutely perfect for it.
That's why we have the audience turn their cameras and microphones off during the performance, because otherwise
Hmm.
I did have somebody once say to me, well, it would be so great to hear the audience reactions. And I'm like, yeah, but then if like their kid comes home and slams the door, their dog starts barking or something, that's less enjoyable. So
Just write it into the play and pretend it. It's just the way it's supposed
who
to
needs
work.
a laugh track? We don't need a laugh. But anyway, so just quickly, so I had, so I just got like really rejuvenated by having my work done online. And I've actually developed several plays online
Yeah.
since, the same format. And I also sometimes would pick a play myself for us to read. And that was a classic play.
Mhm.
And as 2022 started to approach, I spoke to another playwright and said, you know what, it would be really cool if we did something where we read plays set in all 50 states. And so I started submitting or calling for submissions for that.
Sure. Yeah.
And
That's
in some cases, there were multiple plays for a state, and I spun a wheel. And in other cases, like there's a playwright I know named Claudia Haas, who
yep.
has written short plays
Yes.
set in all of the states. And I was like, Claudia, I said, I don't know what your Delaware piece is like. And it's 3 pages and it's hilarious. And I said, but I need something set in Delaware. Give it to me. I don't care what it is.
You could have just done a whole year of Claudia's plays if they're set in every play. It would have made it
Oh,
easy.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
most of them are shorts. But I did reserve Connecticut for myself because my first full length play was set in Connecticut, and it was actually produced twice. So,
Nice. What's the name of that one?
and Grace Notes.
Grace Notes. Okay.
And I
Cool.
actually did also spin a wheel for like I set up a calendar for the year, and they were always on Tuesdays, I believe, except one week we did something a little different because there was another reading I was putting together and it had to be on the Tuesday night, so we did states on Monday. So
Hey.
we had two nights in a row of stuff. But I wrote down all the dates on a calendar, and then I spun the wheel with the 50 states, and I just filled it in, like, so it wasn't alphabetical, it was very random.
Sure. That's good.
And from the beginning of January to the middle of December, I think I took a week off in the summer and a week off one other time. We went straight through.
Nice. Let's talk about your own work because
54 plays.
we just
54
started
plays.
talking about this. Grace notes. I
Oh,
see you write down that you only turned to playwriting during college, but you realized almost immediately that it was what I am supposed to do. How did that
yeah.
happen?
I was at the Eugene O'Neill Center. I did their National Theater Institute program, and everybody had to do everything. They run it like a conservatory.
Right.
So the playwriting class was something that I found very difficult because I was trying to do that, oh, write what you know thing. And everything I wrote
Yeah.
was just like cringy. And finally I said, you know what? It was, I don't know, like 2 days before we had to turn something in. And I was really, really heavily into the Beatles. I still like them a lot, but I mean, I was like all about the Beatles. And so I decided to write a play about what the Beatles were like when they were teenagers. And
Okay. Yeah.
I wrote it I wrote it overnight and handed it in, and it was one of 6 projects out of 24 students that they chose to give a reading to.
Nice. Good for you.
I was like, oh my God. Yeah, it's it's still got a fair amount of what I call clunkers in it, but there's some good stuff in it. But I was just like, okay, cool. So I guess I can do this, but
It's nice to be able to find that out. I mean, doing
it was
theater is
fun.
one thing, but
It was a blast.
oh my gosh. Yeah. I love it. I'd rather be writing or being in a rehearsal room than practically anything else. But
Yeah, I was
yeah.
21, just turned 21 when that happened, but
And you haven't stopped yet. You just keep
no,
right on
I
writing.
stopped at the start, but I'm not going to stop again because it
No.
just, I
Nope.
used to joke with my students that, the reason I like to direct and write is because I like to tell people where to go and what to say.
Shh, we're not supposed to tell people that's why we do that.
Oh, dang it. That's why I give it up.
Cat out of the bag. You wrote that much of your work is female driven and historical in nature. And you and I have sympathies for that particular topic in our own work, but talk to me about how you discovered at least the historical part of that.
So the first full-length play I wrote, Grace Notes,
Mhm.
which, as I said, was produced twice in one year, and I've never had that to happen to anything else. They were both, community theater, but
Right.
it was
No, no,
done.
that
Um,
counts. Yeah.
oh, I know. Oh, I know. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
community theater. It's the best. It came about because I'm adopted and I met my birth family when I was in my mid late 20s. And so I wrote a one act play about the weekend that I went to visit my grandmother in Connecticut, and my mom was there, and I'd met her, a couple of times. I'd gone to go stay with her. She was living in Florida at the time. I was
Yeah.
in New York. And everybody was there, and it was just a very emotional weekend. And I had just had all 4 of my wisdom teeth out.
Oh, ow. Talk about
Um,
timing.
and I gave myself an imaginary half brother who was a bratty teenager. I do not have a half brother, but um, so I wrote this one act play called Sowing the Seeds, and it was a play on words because my grandfather ran an apple orchard, but he was also a book designer, among other things, really interesting guy.
Sure.
And so I got to direct a workshop production of that in a community theater. And then I said, well, I have to go back and write the first half of the story. But, of course, that would have taken place way before I was born. So I based it around my grandmother, who was a very vibrant person. And I had her in my life for a little over 8 years. And she was just like a real grande dame.
Yeah.
She was an amazing person. My mom is still around, thank goodness. She lives in Arizona. She's coming to visit us next summer. But, at the time, I was still working through a lot with her.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it was all about my grandmother. She was just like the coolest person because I didn't have grandparents growing up. And so I went back to the 40s when my grandmother and grandfather got married, and it was a second marriage for each of them. And they each brought one child to the marriage and then had two daughters together. The older one is my mom.
Right.
But I, changed the names to protect the innocent, but I used like the same letters for the names mostly. Not for my grandmother, her name was Martha, but
Right.
she was Grace in the play. But I just like imagined what it was like, from the 40s to the 70s.
Sure. Yeah. That's
So,
that's
and then I had a full length play. So,
it's tricky, I guess, investigating your own family as opposed to something that has no emotional impact on you. I mean, if you talk about a historical figure, you talk about somebody, from the distant past or whatever, who's in no way related to, but you only want to tell their story. So writing about
yeah.
your own family, what were I mean, there had to be a
But I
couple of,
didn't know them, it was more like, okay, I had all these circumstances that happened, but how did they happen was all up to how I imagined it. So one
yeah,
one particular thing that my mom said to me is that she described my grandmother as her best friend, which
okay,
is wonderful. But I was
yeah,
like, well, but what about when you were 19 and pregnant in the 60s? I'm guessing like there was a lot of pressure and stuff between you then, and what was it like for my mom's younger sister, who was a
right,
teenager then too, and so it was kind of fun putting that my uncle Mike, who's now in his 80s, and he's like the lobster man in Connecticut. He has a lobster business, like a catering business.
wow,
Um, what was he like as a teenager in the 50s? I mean,
sure,
so it was kind of,
yeah, but that's what
I've only
theater is all
been a
about. I
handful of
mean,
times, but it was kind of fun. Like, okay.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, like you said, 19 and pregnant in the 60s, and a youngster. Those are the times when we come into the most conflict with our own families because we're finding out who we are, uh,
Yeah.
and we're going in directions that we don't even know where we're going half the time. But that's generally what makes good theater.
Yeah, so I had a lot of good like circumstances, and I do, to be honest with you, like one of the things I love about writing historical plays is that you have source material to work with.
Yes.
I mean there are events, and then you can, spin them around and whatever you need to do. But I have a short play I wrote because I was wondering what it was like for I'd read that Harry Houdini's widow would have seances on the anniversary of his death every year for
Yeah.
10 years. They had this pact that whoever passed on first would try to send a signal back to the other one. So the last time she did one of these seances was on the 10th anniversary of when he passed. And he passed on Halloween, by the way. How
Right. I know that.
appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had this framework, and that's one of my few shorter plays because I keep thinking I'm going to write shorter plays and they end up being full lengths. And so this one is like about 23 minutes or something, which is great, and it's called The Final Seance. But the entire second scene of the three scenes, I had a radio broadcast that they were doing from the roof of this hotel in Los
Mhm.
Angeles, and they had all this whole audience there, and so almost the entire um actually I think it's basically a monologue for the guy who was her manager and some think was also her lover at that time.
Yeah.
And so
Interesting.
I was
Yeah.
like, great, I can just like take this and build off it and trim it down. So it's like a 6.5 minute monologue now. I didn't have to write it. I had to edit it. But it also told me so much about, what it was like. It
Yeah.
really said so. There's all that you can hear the whole radio broadcast, and I transcribed it, and then I was like, boom, this is repetitive. This does, so
Yeah.
historical stuff like it's so nice that you have like a basis.
Yes. Your story is kind of already written for you. It just depends on how you want to tell it. you know.
Yeah, and what you're emphasizing and what your point is and all of that, which
Exactly, right.
leads leads me to this whole thing I'm writing now about this woman who was like a folk music and story collector in the Maritimes in Canada, where I live now. Um, that's kind of what the crux of the whole play is about because I got the idea because I heard about her like going around to this widow and learning this song that is now like sung by everybody. It's called Farewell to Nova Scotia.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
because she once she learned it, a lot of other people were like, "Oh, I know that song," and they would sing it to her. And she had this ancient recording machine. We're talking about like the in the 40s.
Right.
So you had to like lug it on a cart and everything, and you had like the silver discs anyway.
State
So
of the art.
yeah, in the 40s. So anyway, then she was hearing all these different versions with different verses, and she's like, so she said to her traveling companion, well, so how do I know which one to publish? Because she was getting stuff published. And so she weeded together different ones and
Mhm.
used, I think the last verse that she used was one of the ones that the widow had sung to her the first time she heard it. So that's kind of like what the whole point of the play is about. Like art is subjective and it all has value. So, you can do something that write about something or draw something that other
Yeah,
people have done, but it's your take on it. And
absolutely.
that's what our teachers tell us when we're little, but it really makes you think, what has value and, oh, well, how are you putting your stamp on things?
Yours is yours, and that makes it unique as it is. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Rachel
So
Rubin
there,
Ladutke, this has been great fun. I actually get to meet you for the first time in all these years, and having known about you and seen your writing, and finally seeing States of Play the other night. I apologize for taking so long to get to it.
you'll have to
Nikki,
come again.
I will. Oh, I will definitely come again. Absolutely. And maybe if you need an actor, hello. Well, stay warm up there in Nova Scotia. Hey kids, thanks for listening to On Stage Offstage. On Stage Offstage is produced monthly, and all of our shows can be found at onstageoffstage.org and also on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoy what we do, please recommend us to your friends. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at OnOffStage. And if you are a theater artist with an upcoming project or interest, or know of someone in the theater world who'd make good chat, by all means, send us a note at onstageoffstagepodcast@gmail.com. Our theme music is Don't Worry, Be Frappy by the composer Max Dickinson. You can find a lot more of Max's magnificent music on SoundCloud. I'm George Sapio. Thanks once again for listening, and please be kind to those with whom we share this rock. And as always, happy theatering to all of you.